horse racing history.
Diane Crump was born in Milford, Connecticut in 1948. Her family later relocated to Oldsmar in Florida where she grew up. Diane Crump started experimenting with older horses. She started riding the over 1-year-old ponies. This gave her more confidence. In no time, she was practicing with full-grown horses. The process took time, though. Trainers at the track allowed her to ride horses who were recuperating from injuries. Crump was now ready to compete in her dream races. One hurdle stood in her way to achieving her dreams. Female riders were not allowed to race in horse derbies. The honor and pleasure to interview Diane Crump about her accomplishment. Diane, what influenced you to become a jockey?
For me, it wasn't that I started out wanting to be a jockey. I just was in love with horses. From the time I was a little kid, I wanted to ride. So riding horses was my passion all my life. Just out riding one day with a bunch of friends and came upon the racetrack, not knowing even what it was, and it held an instant fascination for me. There was something there that just started my love for racing. And that was the start of all of it. I love to ride. And then finding the racetrack sort of ignited something inside of me that I will say, it was a feeling like I'd never felt before.
When you were a jockey, did you feel like you broke any barriers for the women in the racing industry?
I mean, I was a part of breaking the barriers. Kathy Kushner was the one that took it to court. She actually was an Olympic rider. Could ride on the Olympic team and yet not ride in a race. So that was pretty daunting right there to say that we could do one thing but not another. So it just shows you how I think male-dominated the sport was for so long. And the trainer that she galloped for, her name was Penny Ann Early, named her on a horse the last day. And everyone was up in arms with the thought of girls riding. So with that, they moved the race that she was named on a horse on to the last race of the day, and then the riders boycotted her. That was in 1968. And then in January of 69, Barbara Jo Rubin was named on a horse, and the riders boycotted her. So that was 2 strikes now. And then the next meet was Hialeah, which was the premier racing in those days. And the stewards there said, any man that won't ride against a woman is going to be fined and suspended for the whole meet. And with that, I was named on a horse, and the stewards were like, no, if anybody doesn't ride against her, there's going to be a problem. You know, we're going to fine the heck out of you, and you're not going to ride here for this meet. So with that, everyone rode against me. Start somewhere. So I think the fact that I was persistent, and no matter the bad press that we got, between the riders and the press itself, the trainers, basically everyone in the racing industry was just up in arms about women in the sport, especially as a jockey. I just quietly pursued my dream and my goals, which were to ride races. Slowly, people could see that women were dedicated, could be dedicated. That was as a kid, but I was quiet and dedicated. I just did what I loved. And then, again, to be the first woman to ride in the Derby I never was the kind of person that, I didn't ever want press. I didn't ever want the reporters, cluttering around me. I answered people. I've always answered people. So I think I did it in a way that maybe started things out on the right foot by not getting everybody all worked up. I always just did it quietly and just with determination. It started paving the way for the ones that came after us to be accepted and to have the chance to ride really nice horses, because that's what it's about. And I think the fact that we were determined, we worked so hard and tried so hard, that I think that was just a good way to get the whole racing world as a whole to see that women were and could be a very important part of the racing industry.
Mm-hmm. When you were a jockey, what challenges did you face?
The biggest challenges that I faced were not getting mounts. No matter how hard you worked, No matter how many horses that you galloped in the morning for people, it was just hard for people to give you the opportunity to ride. That was my biggest challenge.
What opposition did you face?
The opposition was a lot of the media, for one thing. The Jocks Guild, the jockeys in general. I mean, just pretty much the racing industry just wasn't ready for women to be a jockey. But for the majority was totally against it, that women just were not cut out for that sport. And in the horse world, that is almost the opposite, because women do great in the horse world. In all equine activities, they have a strong presence, and they do great. So to think that it couldn't happen in the racing world was pretty crazy. It was obsolete to have that feeling. And so it doesn't really have anything to do with it. If you weigh 110 pounds and the horse is 12 or 1,300 pounds, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I mean, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not strength, and yet that was so much of what people felt, that women wouldn't be strong enough and that they wouldn't be able to hold up under pressure. And I mean, there's pressure in a race because you get in really tight where all the horses are, you know, in a real tight pack. And it's easy for a horse to clip heels and go down or bump another one and, you know, the horse to stumble. You come off, I mean, you're going to break bones. That's just a given fact. But to say that it was only for a man is crazy, because women do so well with horses. And that's been proven over the years for sure. So in all of the other equine sports, and now it's pretty much given that you can see that women do great in any of the horse sports, and that includes racing. A good woman jockey is just as good as anybody else.
Do you have any idea you are about to change the future?
The crazy thing is, when you're in that mode of doing it, that you just want something so badly, that you're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about today. I wanted to ride races. That was my dream, and it was looking like it was going to be possibly not going to happen the way it started out with, you know, all the people against it, with the boycotts. So did I think I was going to change the future? I guess deep down I thought I was, but not personally. I thought that movement was going to happen. It needed to happen, and it did happen. I just was lucky enough in the right place in the right time to put my one little footprint into the history book.
What are you doing now?
As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. The only thing I've ever done in my entire life is horses. So with that, I was thinking about using the internet. It was just starting to come into play. That would have been in 1999. I retired, and I started playing around on the internet a little bit, and we're thinking that maybe finding horses for people riding horses, whether it was a show horse or a fox hunt or whatever it was, for people for me to be able to help them find something. And a few people that I knew in this area had horses for sale, and they said, well, why don't you list them on your website for us? So with that, I started putting horses for sale on my website. The business actually took off, and since then it's been excellent. And I take pictures and videos, and it's made me be able to stay in the horse world, doing what I love, and being around horse people. Doesn't have to be racing. It's all things, all disciplines, which I love horses. That's how I started my life, loving horses, not even knowing about the racing part. So I just love the industry. I love anything to do with horses. And so I continue that love through the work that I do. Around the horses, I'm around horse people, and it's just worked out for me perfectly for somebody that their whole education in life has been horses.
Crump was not only the first female jockey in the United States, but the best one. She made dreams come true and opportunities endless for everyone. She is an inspiration to me.